Good evening, brave learner. Welcome back. Tonight's tale opens with a question sharp enough to cut moonlight. Why did the clock tower speak a word that no one could hear? At 5:29 a.m., the old clock above Graybridge Square stalled, just for the length of a held breath. Pigeons froze mid-step. Steam from a tea stall curled upward and stopped, as if the air were waiting for a cue. Then the clock rang 5, then 6, then 7. Too many chimes, and in the bright sliver between 7 and 8, a whisper spooled from the bell's throat. People felt it brush their ears like silk, saw their neighbors startle, but not a single person could name the word. Shopkeepers blinked. Joggers checked their headphones. A child on a scooter looked up and said, "It sounded like a color." A policeman said, "It sounded like a promise." The square breathed again, and the morning stumbled forward as if nothing had happened. Only one person did not move on. Her name was Mara Quinn, a subtitler who made foreign films speak to Graybridge. She lived 3 floors above the tea stall and had a collection of alarm clocks set 5 minutes apart, like a staircase of waking. She was careful with time, careful with language, and careful with the past, which had once made her voice tremble in public and had taught her keep audiences at the exact distance of a screen. When the whisper came, Mara felt it thread through her bones and pull. She placed her coffee on the windowsill untouched and wrote a single line on the notepad she kept by the sink. The clock said something. Down on the square, a banner flapped across scaffolding. Centennial Restoration, Graybridge Clock Tower. The city had been repairing the tower for months, and the repairs had already eaten mornings, swallowed evenings, and stitched detours through everyone's routines. But a word that was new. Mara dressed in her usual grayscale, charcoal coat, slate scarf, graphite shoes, and hurried downstairs. The tea seller, Mr. Hale, was pouring from a brass kettle into paper cups that steamed like unwritten letters. "You heard it?" he asked, not as a question but as a fellowship. "I felt it," she said, "like a subtitle that flashes and vanishes before the eye can catch it." Mr. Hale nodded toward the tower. "They say the bell was recast last night. New metal, old song. Sometimes new metal remembers different things." A crane swung its long neck beside the tower. Workers in orange jackets lifted their faces to Bell, as if listening for an apology. The foreman, a woman with a streak of white in her hair and a pencil tucked behind her ear, held a clipboard and frowned at a checklist that seemed to grow longer as she read it. Mara stepped closer until the barricade's tape kissed her knees. The tower stone was the color of faded paper. On its west face, a circular hatch hung open like a blinking eye. Behind it, shadow layered shadow. Then a second strangeness arrived. A pigeon, oil slick and iridescent, fluttered down to the railing just in front of Mara. Its left leg wore a brass ring, finely etched. Her eyes caught the smallest engraving. 7 to 9. 7 to 9. A window of time, or a range of chimes. The bird cocked its head, released a pale thread of paper from its beak, and dropped it at Mara's feet. She lifted the paper. It was thin as petals and smelled faintly of rain. On it, in a looping hand, stood 3 words. "Find the echo." "Excuse me." Mara called the foreman. "Who's in charge of Bell?" The woman looked up. "Depends who's asking." "Someone who wants to listen." The foreman's mouth tilted into something like respect. "Name's Rowan. We're rebalancing the striker. If you're from the city, you know the drill. Forms, safety briefings, patience." Mara showed the paper. "This came from your tower." Rowan stepped down from the scaffolding, took the note, and read it once, twice. Her pencil tapped the clipboard. "Strange. We found a hidden cavity behind the bell's cradle last night. Dust, coins, a child marbles, and a pocket watch that refuses to tick. But no notes, and certainly no messengers with wings." Mara touched the pigeon's ring. The bird didn't flinch. 7 to 9, she murmured. "Is there access between those hours?" Rowan hesitated. "For inspection, yes. But why would anyone—" "Never mind. Look, curiosity is admirable. Curiosity without caution is how people vanish into headlines. The tower is old, and old things keep secrets badly." From behind them, Mr. Hale called, "Tea for the curious." He held out 2 cups. Rowan accepted one. Mara took the other and warmed her fingers. Over the rim of the cup, the tower's open hatch seemed to grow wider, as if the building were drawing its own breath, preparing a second whisper. The clock's hand shivered at 7:47. In 13 minutes, the remembered word might return, or it might decide that once was enough. Mara felt a pressure in her chest, the opposite of stage fright, a hunger for the unseen stage, a need to step into the wings where even fear must be quiet. She folded the note and placed it inside her sleeve. "If there's a way up," she said to Rowan, softly but steady, "show it to her." Rowan studied her, then nodded toward the temporary stair. 7 to 9, she said. "Let's see what answers prefer that hour." The stair to the tower was a skeleton of steel, temporary and trembling, wrapped in netting that rattled whenever the wind tested it. Mara followed Rowan upward, each step clanging like punctuation against a hush that still lingered in Graybridge Square. Below, Mr. Hale poured tea for early customers, but the ordinary noises, coins clinking, cups tapping, sounded muted, as though the tower had drawn a veil over the square. By the time they reached the hatch at the west face, Mara's pulse kept the rhythm of the missing 8 chime. Rowan pushed the hatch wider, its hinges signed like an old actor about to deliver a forgotten line. Inside lay a narrow corridor of dust, the air heavy with iron and old oil. A single bulb swung from a frayed cord, and its glow barely brushed the first set of gears. Each was enormous, rimmed with teeth that could swallow a hand whole. "Mind the machinery," Rowan warned. "It remembers every slip." Mara stepped carefully, but her eyes caught something more than gears. Faint scratches marked the stone wall, not from tools, but from fingers. Words had been carved, though time had worn them smooth. Echo weights. She traced the letters. Someone wanted this seen. Rowan frowned. "We scrubbed the walls when restoration began. This wasn't here last week." The bulb flickered, and in that stutter of light Mara saw the pigeon again, perched on a beam far above them, its brass ring glinting. It cooed once, as if acknowledging their arrival, then vanished deeper into the tower's ribs. They climbed another stair, spiral this time, slick with condensation. The higher they went, the more the tower seemed to breathe around them, sighs in the beams, creaks in the stone. At the landing beneath the bell, Mara stopped short. There, nailed to a wooden post, hung the pocket watch Rowan had mentioned. It was open, its hands locked forever at 7:53. The second hand quivered as though trapped between moments. Rowan touched the case. "We found it buried in dust. It refuses to tick, even after cleaning. We left it here as a curiosity." Mara leaned close. The face of the watch reflected her eyes, but behind her reflection, she thought she glimpsed something else, a hallway of arches, leading away into dark water. She blinked, and the vision dissolved. The bell loomed above them, vast and tarnished. It smelled of rain and smoke. Mara placed her palm on its cold flank, expecting only chill. But instead of vibration slid into her skin, a murmur that felt like words spoken too quietly to decipher. She whispered, "Say it again." And then, as if obeying, the bell shuddered once. A hollow resonance poured out, not a ring but a breath. In that breath Mara heard syllables fracture. "Finn! Deep, deep." The rest dissolved into a metallic moan. Rowan backed away. "That's impossible. The striker isn't moving." Mara's sleeve rustled, and she remembered the folded note. She held it against the bell. Instantly, the paper grew damp and ink bloomed across its surface, completing the earlier message. "Find the echo before 9. The stair beneath them rattled. Dust rained down. Somewhere lower in the tower, a door slammed shut, though they had left no doors open. Rowan muttered, "We're not alone." The pigeon returned, circling the bell once before dropping another thread of paper. This one carried only a drawing, a single keyhole set inside an eye. The clock struck 8. The tower trembled as though startled awake. Mara knew with a certainty that had no logic. The missing word would return at 9, and if they had not found the echo by then, the tower might not whisper again, it might scream. The 8th chime had barely faded when footsteps echoed on the lower stair. Not the light tread of pigeons, nor the hollow creak of wood, but boots, heavy, deliberate. Rowan's eyes sharpened. She pulled Mara behind the bell's broad shadow and signaled for silence. The figure that emerged into the chamber carried no lantern, yet somehow he walked with assurance, as though the darkness bent itself to his memory. He wore a coat the color of soot, buttoned high, and in his hand gleamed a thin rod of brass capped with a tuning fork. His face, when the faint bulb caught it, was unreadable. Not young, not old, etched with the lines of someone who had listened too long to things never meant for ears. He stopped before the bell, touched the tuning fork to its rim, and closed his eyes. The bell responded with a whisper only Mara seemed to hear. "Keeper." Rowan inhaled sharply. "Who are you?" The man's eyes opened, pale as river glass. "I am the custodian of silence. My task is older than your records, older than this stone. I keep the bell from saying more than the world can bear." Mara stepped forward despite Rowan's grip on her sleeve. It already spoke. People heard something. The custodian tilted his head. They heard fragments, shadows of a word. That is enough to unsettle. But if the full word escapes at the ninth chime, it will not unsettle, it will unravel. His rod tapped the bell again, and faint cracks of light raced across the metal, like veins of lightning held captive. Mara's chest tightened, as if the unseen word pressed against her ribs. "Why me?" she asked. "Why did the tower choose me?" The custodian studied her. "You work with words. You give voice to foreign tongues, stitch silence into sentences." The bell called to translator, someone who understands both what is spoken and what is hidden. Rowan crossed her arms. "If you want the bell quiet, then weld it shut. Fill it with cement. And the problem." The custodian's smile was thin. "Would you weld the sea? Would you silence the wind? This bell is not metal. It is a mouth carved by time. It must speak, but only in echoes, never in its own true voice." Mara unfolded the note. The fresh ink still glistened. "Find the echo before 9. She held it out. "What does this mean?" The custodian's gaze deepened. Echo is the safer twin of the word. When the bell speaks, an echo hides somewhere in the tower. If you find the echo and bind it, the word cannot tear free. Miss the moment, and the word enters the city. People will not hear it as meaning. They will hear it as command. Command to do what? Rowan asked. "To forget themselves," he whispered. "To drop their names like coats. To dissolve." Silence pressed thick between them. Only the gears far below kept turning, grinding time toward 9. Mara felt her pulse match their rhythm. "Where is the echo?" The custodian raised his rod and pointed to the stair coiling higher, into the belfry's crown. "It always hides above the tongue. But beware, echoes guard themselves. They may borrow shapes you trust." The pigeon cooed from the rafters. Its brass ring flashed again. 7 to 9. 7 to 9. A reminder or a warning. Mara turned to Rowan. "If you believe him, we have less than an hour." Rowan's jaw tightened. "And if I don't believe him, then at 9, Mara said, we'll know what it means to dissolve." The custodian stepped aside. "Choose, upward to the echo, or downward to the door. Either way, the bell will speak again." The stair above them waited, dark as a throat. Mara chose upward. Rowan cursed under her breath, but followed, the iron steps groaning beneath their boots. The custodian did not move, only lowered his head, as though listening to something none of them could hear. The spiral stair narrowed as they climbed. Dust clung to the walls like a second skin, and every few steps a small alcove yawned, empty but for relics. A broken lantern, a glove stiff with age, a child's marble gleaming faintly in the gloom. Each object seemed to hum with the same subtle vibration Mara had felt in the bell. Halfway to the belfry, the air thickened. Shadows gathered not in corners, but in midair, like smoke without fire. One of the shapes detached and stepped forward. Mara's heart stuttered. It was her mother, not the way her mother had looked at the end, weary and fading, but vibrant, laughing, apron dusted with flour. "Mara," the shadow said, voice layered like two notes sung together. "You've climbed too far. Come down. Come home." Rowan lifted her arm in warning. "Don't listen." But the pull was enormous, heavier than grief, gentler than memory. Mara's knees weakened. She sounds real." The figure extended a hand. The skin shimmered, half light, half void. Only echoes love you honestly. The word will hurt you. Stay with me. Mara closed her eyes, fighting the ache of wanting. Borrowed shapes, the custodian had said. Echoes guard themselves. Her breath trembled, but she stepped backward instead of forward. No, she whispered. You're not her. My mother never begged me to stop climbing. The shadow's face twisted, first into her own, then into Rowan's, then into nothing at all. With a sound like a sigh ripped open, it collapsed into dust that rained down the stairwell. Rowan steadied her. Next time, don't hesitate. They climbed faster. More shapes stirred. A teacher from Mara's school, an old friend who had betrayed her, the child on the scooter from Greybridge Square. Each spoke, coaxed, pleaded. But the two women pressed on, eyes fixed on the small round hatch of the belfry above. At last they reached it. Rowan forced a latch. The hatch swung wide, and cold air rushed in, salted with the sea's breath. The belfry was an octagonal chamber of stone, its roof ribbed like an upturned ship. And there, on the far side, something shimmered. It looked like a mirror hung in midair, tall as a door, rippling as though made of liquid glass. Within it, Mara saw not a reflection, but the city spread beneath, streets bending, lights flickering, people pausing mid-step as though waiting for instruction. The mirror pulsed. A sound leaked through, faint, broken syllables, as if the missing word had been trapped there, rehearsing. Rowan's knuckles whitened on her clipboard. That's it? That's the echo. Mara stepped closer. Her voice was steady, though her chest was not. No, that's the cage. The echo is inside and it wants out. The clock's hand struck 8:30. The belfry shook as if something enormous had turned in its sleep. The mirror brightened, silver bleeding toward white. Mara reached into her sleeve, touched a folded note. The ink had begun to blur, letters running like tears. Find the echo before 9. Rowan asked, and when we find it, Mara whispered, we bind it or we vanish with it. The mirror pulsed again. This time, a hand pressed against the other side. Her hand, her face, her body, an echo Mara could not deny. Mara froze. On the other side of the rippling mirror, her echo self stared back with unbearable precision. Not a blurred shadow, not a distortion. Her. Same coat, same scarf, same tremor in the fingers. The only difference was in the eyes. The reflection's gaze was calm, certain, almost cruelly sure of its place in the world. Rowan stepped forward, clipboard raised as if a shield. That's not you. That's bait. But the echo Mara spoke, voice ringing like two tuning forks struck together. I am what you could be if you stopped doubting. I don't flinch. I don't falter. I don't choke on silence. Let me through, and you'll never feel small again. The glass quivered. Lines of light cracked outward, as though the barrier itself longed to surrender. Mara felt heat rise in her chest. Anger, longing, hunger, because the echo wasn't wrong. She had flinched. She had faltered. She had lived her life as a subtitler, forever speaking with other people's voices instead of her own. What if the echo was a version of her she needed to become? Rowan hissed. It's feeding on you. Step back. But the echo lifted its hand again, palm against the glass. Mara raised hers almost without thought. Their hands aligned. Cold jolted through her skin. For a heartbeat, she wasn't in the belfry, but in the other Greybridge, the one inside the mirror. Streets stretched below her like veins of silver. People moved as shadows, obedient, silent. And above it all, the word vibrated, almost whole. Mara. Rowan yanked her arm back, breaking the contact. The belfry reeled into focus again. The echo scowled, and for the first time its calm fractured. Without me, you will fail. Without me, the word will escape. Rowan growled. Then we bind you. She shoved the clipboard into Mara's hands. Paper. Ink. You're the translator. Write it down before it slips free. Mara stared at the blank back page. Her pulse hammered like the gears below. How do you write a thing that has no letters? A sound not yet born? The echo laughed, a brittle sound that rattled the rafters. Bind me and you bind yourself. You'll lose me, the self who speaks without fear. The clock struck 8:45. The sound shook the belfry so violently that dust rained down in bitter clouds. The mirror shuddered. Cracks spied across its surface, each one glowing. Mara gripped the pencil, hand trembling. She closed her eyes and listened. Not to the echo's taunts, not to Rowan's breath quickening beside her, but to the rhythm of the bell's earlier murmur. A syllable here, a syllable there. Finn, did it? Her hand moved, sketching curves, lines, fragments of an alphabet she didn't recognize but somehow knew. Each stroke felt like carving bone from her own body. When she finished, a word shone on the page, humming with heat. Rowan read it, eyes wide. What does it mean? Mara whispered. It means nothing, and that's why it holds everything. It's not the word, it's the echo. I've caught it. The mirror howled, surface rippling into chaos. The echo Mara slammed both palms against the barrier, screaming soundlessly as the cracks widened. Then, in one last convulsion, the mirror shattered, not outward, but inward, imploding into a single shard that shot into the page. The paper burned with light, then cooled, leaving only ink that no longer blurred. Mara collapsed to her knees. Her chest heaved, but her hands no longer shook. The echo was bound. Rowan crouched beside her. You did it. The belfry stilled. Outside, the city breathed again, unaware how close it had come to dissolving. But far below, the bell stirred. Its voice rolled up to the tower, deeper, angrier, and Mara realized, binding the echo had not silenced a word. It had only angered it. The bell groaned like a leviathan turning in its sleep. Its metal body trembled, shedding flakes of tarnish that drifted like black snow. The air inside the belfry thickened until each breath felt like inhaling molten iron. Rowan gripped Mara's arm. It's not over. The clock's hand swept to 8:50. 10 minutes left. The bound page in Mara's hand pulsed with faint warmth, the captured echo vibrating like a heartbeat. She pressed it against her chest as though shielding it. Then the custodian of silence appeared at the top of the stair, his coat unruffled despite the shaking tower. His pale eyes flicked to the page, then to the bell. You were fast, he murmured, but not fast enough. Mara rose unsteadily. We found the echo. Isn't that what you wanted? The custodian shook his head. You caught a shadow, but the word itself. He gestured to the bell, which quivered more violently now, as if straining against invisible chains. The word wakes, and it is no longer content with fragments. A low resonance throbbed from the bell. Mara and Rowan clapped their hands over their ears, but the sound wasn't entering through air. It was sliding directly into bone. The walls shivered with it, old mortar cracking like brittle skin. Rowan shouted, though her voice sounded distant. If it speaks, what happens? The custodian's face was grave. The city will forget its own name. Streets will bend into rivers. People will wander without memory of who they were. Language itself will rot. Mara felt the paper burning against her chest. She understood now why the echo mattered. It was a counterweight. Without it, the word was free to unmake. With it, there was a chance, just a chance, to cage the word again. But how? She staggered forward, clutching the page. Tell me how to bind it. The custodian's pale gaze sharpened. A word can only be bound by another word. Not silence, not chains. Speak the echo into the bell before 9, and the bell may fall quiet again. Phelan. He didn't finish. The unfinished sentence was worse than any warning. Mara turned to Rowan. Then I have to do it. I have to read it aloud. Rowan's grip on her shoulder was fierce. What if it pulls you in? What if it erases you instead? Mara met her eyes. Better one voice lost in a whole city. The custodian struck his tuning fork. The note it produced quivered in the air, pure and sharp, slicing through the bell's rising growl. Be quick, he said. It's already listening. Mara opened the page. The letters she had scrawled now glowed faintly, shifting like reflections in water. She lifted the paper toward the bell's vast mouth. Her own mouth dried, but she forced the first syllable past her lips. The tower bucked as though struck by a storm. The word inside the bell roared in answer, not spoken, but screamed, every vowel twisting like knives. The belfry stones groaned. The clock's hand jerked closer to 9 o'clock, faster than time itself should move. Rowan braced herself against the wall. Finish it. Mara drew breath and shouted the rest of the echo. The sound ripped her throat raw, but the page burst into white flame, and the echo syllables tore through the air, threading themselves around the bell like a chain of light. The bell shrieked, not with sound, it was silence, so sharp it felt like shattering glass. And then darkness. The bulb above them popped. The city lights below flickered out, block by block, until Greybridge lay in black silence. The bell had stopped, but so had the clocks across the city. Every one. Mara's voice was gone. When she opened her mouth, no sound emerged. The echo was bound, but at the cost of her own voice. Rowan touched her shoulder, eyes wide with fear. Mara, what did you give up? The belfry still quivered with aftershocks, but the bell no longer moved. It hung motionless, blackened and heavy, like an executioner's blade waiting for the next neck. Below, Greybridge lay in eerie darkness. Every clock stilled, every street lamp extinguished, as though time itself had taken shelter. Rowan whispered. The whole city stopped. Her voice cracked. She looked at Mara. Say something. Tell me you're all right. Mara opened her mouth. Air moved. Her chest rose and fell, but no sound came, not even a rasp. Rowan's face went pale. No. The custodian of silence stepped closer, the tuning fork gleaming faintly. His expression was neither pity nor triumph. It was resignation. You spoke the echo into the bell. The balance demanded a vessel. Your voice became the chain. Mara pressed her hand against her throat. Her voice, her only craft, her livelihood, her bridge to others, gone. She tried to protest, to ask if it could be undone, but only silence poured out. The custodian lowered his gaze. Few realize the word is not sound but hunger. It feeds on tongues, and yours was offered freely. That sacrifice brought the city another century of safety. Rowan's jaw tightened. Another century? Meaning this will happen again. He nodded. Every 100 years the word stirs, searching for release. This tower was built not to tell time, but to cage it. And every century, someone must climb and bleed their voice into cage. Mara's eyes burned. She scribbled on Rowan's clipboard with shaking hands. Why me? Why now? Rowan read aloud. The custodian's pale eyes softened. Because the word chooses translators, those who understand the weight of meaning. You were not summoned by chance, Mara Quinn. You were chosen because you carry silence and speech equally in your bones. The page trembled in her hand. Chosen. The word stung like both honor and cruelty. Rowan clenched her fists. So that's it? She saves everyone, and you just let her live voiceless. The custodian's reply was quiet. Better voiceless than erased. But before Rowan could strike him with another retort, the bell stirred again. Not with sound, but with light. Its surface glowed faintly, as if veins of molten silver threaded through the metal. The tower hummed with energy, not anger this time, but warning. The custodian stiffened. Impossible. It should be bound. From the rafters, the pigeon swooped down, brass ring flashing. It dropped one final thread of paper into Mara's hands. On it were 4 words, etched in urgent ink. The word isn't done. The clock's frozen hand shivered. Somewhere deep in the city, another bell answered, not from Greybridge Tower, but from beneath the ground, a subterranean echo. Rowan swallowed hard. If that's true, then the voice you gave up was enough. Mara's silence was louder than any scream. The belfry vibrated like a heart about to burst. The bound bell glowed with threads of silver, but beneath the floor, deeper than stone, another resonance pulsed, a hidden bell underground, calling in defiance. The custodian's face drained of color. This is wrong, he muttered. There should be only one word, one cage. But there's a twin below, and it is waking. Rowan stepped toward him. You knew this was possible. His jaw tightened. I suspected. The builders hid their fear beneath the city. A second mouth in case the first failed. But 2 mouths mean 2 hungers. Mara scribbled on the clipboard, her hand shaking. If one is bound and the other free, what happens? The custodian read aloud, then closed his eyes. The city splits, half bound in silence, half dissolved by command. Greybridge will fracture into 2 shadows of itself. The floor shook, dust rained down. From the streets below came the sound of people crying out, not in fear, but in unison, as if rehearsing lines they did not know they had memorized. Their words rose into the tower, a chorus without meaning, syllables crumbling as soon as they were spoken. Rowan grabbed Mara's wrist. "We have to do something before 9. Whatever that underground bell is, if it speaks." The custodian lifted his tuning fork. Its note pierced the air, steady, defiant. Only one thing can bridge the two bells. The echo you caught must be carried downward, into the dark. If it speaks against the twin, it may silence both. Mara's throat ached with the absence of her voice. She tapped the clipboard, then wrote, "Without a voice, how do I speak it?" The custodian looked at her gravely. Through another tongue. Rowan froze. "No, don't even think about it." But Mara pressed the page, the glowing echo, into Rowan's hands. Her eyes pleaded. Rowan shook her head violently. "I can't. I don't even know what it means." Mara wrote one final line, meaning doesn't matter. Only the sound. The tower's hand jerked forward. 8:59. The pigeon swooped once more, circling the women before diving down the stairwell toward the depths, as though guiding them. Rowan swallowed hard, gripping the page until her knuckles blanched. "Fine," she whispered. "But if this kills me, I'll haunt you." Together they descended, the custodian following like a shadow. The lower they went, the colder it grew, until they reached a chamber carved of black stone. There, half buried, stood the second bell, vast, cracked, glowing from within like a furnace. Its mouth yawned toward them, wide enough to swallow a cathedral. The clock struck 9. The underground bell roared. Its word was almost whole, a command that clawed at marrow. The chamber buckled. Rowan unfolded the page. Her voice shook, but she raised it anyway, syllables tumbling like broken glass. The echo, imperfect, fierce, alive. The sound stabbed the darkness, wrapping around the roaring word. For a moment, both voices collided, one a command, one a defiance. Then silence. The bells, both of them, dimmed, their glow sinking into ash. The city above exhaled. Lights blinked on. Clocks resumed their ticking. People cried out in confusion, but no longer in unison. Rowan staggered, coughing but alive. She still had her voice. Mara still did not. The custodian lowered his fork. The word sleeps again, but it will return. A century, a decade, perhaps a day. It always returns. Mara touched Rowan's shoulder, gratitude burning in her eyes. Rowan squeezed her hand. Next time, someone else can climb the damn stairs. The pigeon perched on the cracked bell, its brass ring gleaming. For the first time, it cooed not like a warning, but like applause. In the silence that followed, Graybridge began again, not whole, not healed, but still standing. The 9th chime had passed. The word was buried. For now. And so, dear friends, the mystery of Graybridge Tower comes to an end. Mara Quinn gave up her voice to protect her city, and with Rowan's courage, the two women silenced not one, but 2 hungry bells. The lesson is clear. Sometimes sacrifice and unity are the only way to hold back the darkness. Thank you for staying with me until the final chime. I hope this story made you curious, gave you chills, and inspired your English journey. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next adventure. And please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of Mara's journey touched you the most? Goodbye for now, and remember, every word you learn is another light against the silence. Crescent Moon Sparkles.